All right, let's jump right into it. Today, we're going to decode a set of rules that, believe it or not, has a huge impact on pretty much everything in our homes and offices. We're talking about sustainability standards, and we're looking specifically at the one for all the products used to build the world around us. So think about this for a second. How do you actually measure how sustainable your office chair is, or the paint on your walls? I mean, where do you even start? Is it about the energy it took to make it, the chemicals inside, where the wood came from? It gets complicated, fast. The easiest way to wrap your head around this is to think of a nutritional label on your food. But instead of calories and sugar, this label shows you a company's performance on key sustainability issues, the kind of stuff that actually impacts their financial health. It gives us all clear, comparable data so we can really look under the hood. So who's creating this common language? Well, that would be SASB, the Sustainability Accounting Standards Board. They're actually part of the International Financial Reporting Standards Foundation now, and their whole goal is simple: create one clear set of rules. That way, when a company talks about its sustainability, we all know exactly what they're talking about. No more guessing games. Okay, so here's our game plan. First, we'll break down what these standards are actually made of. Then we're going to zoom right in on the building and furnishings industry. After that, we'll spend a good bit of time on a really crucial topic, chemicals, and the whole hazard versus risk debate. We'll touch on a few other key metrics, and then we'll wrap it all up with why this stuff really, truly matters. Right, let's get down to the fundamentals. Every single one of the 77 different industry standards that SASB has created is built using the same 5 key ingredients. First step, you've got the industry description. That just makes it super clear who the standard is for. Then you have the disclosure topics. These are the big sustainability risks and opportunities for that specific industry. For each of those topics, there are metrics to actually measure performance and technical protocols that tell you exactly how to do the measuring. And finally, activity metrics, which just provides scales so you can compare apples to apples. See? It's a really logical step-by-step system. Okay, so now let's sharpen our focus. Out of all 77 of those industries, we are zeroing in on just one: building products and furnishings. And when you stop and think about it, the sheer amount of these products in our lives is just staggering. This standard is all about the companies that make the physical world we live and work in. We're talking everything from the floor under your feet to the ceiling tiles over your head to the desk you're sitting at right now and even the lumber that frames a house. It is a massive, massive industry. Okay, time for the main event. One of the absolute most critical topics for this industry is how a company deals with the chemicals in its products. And this really all boils down to 2 totally different philosophies for thinking about safety. The first way of thinking is the hazard-based approach. This method looks at a chemical and basically judges it on its own inherent properties. Is it toxic? Does it cause cancer? The question is really simple. Is this substance, by itself, bad? It doesn't matter how much of it you might be exposed to, the focus is just on the chemical itself. Now, the second philosophy is the risk-based approach. This one's a bit more nuanced. It takes all that hazard information, but then it adds a super important second piece to the puzzle: exposure. It asks how much of this substance might a person actually come into contact with. So the question changes from, is it bad, to, is this substance bad for you in this particular situation? So let's just lay this out side by side. The hazard approach, it focuses on the property of the chemical. The solution is pretty blunt: just ban it or restrict it. The risk approach, on the other hand, focuses on the pathway of exposure. It tries to manage safety by figuring out the actual probability of harm in the real world. You can see these are 2 very, very different ways of looking at the same problem. And this difference in philosophy leads to totally different actions. A company going with a hazard-based approach will often create what's called a restricted substances list, an RSL. It's basically a blacklist of chemicals they promise not to use, period. But a company using a risk-based approach, they're going to use sophisticated tools to model real-world scenarios and figure out if a chemical actually poses a risk in a specific product. Now, managing chemicals is obviously a huge piece of the puzzle for this industry, but the standard is way broader than just that. It makes companies report on a bunch of other important things to give you the full picture. Let's check out a couple more. Energy is a big one, for sure. Manufacturing just eats up a ton of energy, so the standard asks for 3 key numbers. First, the total energy a company uses. Second, what percentage of that comes from the regular electrical grid. And third, what percentage comes from renewable sources. It gives you a really clear, quick snapshot of their energy diet. The standard also forces companies to think about the entire life of their products, not just the part where they're making them. They have to talk about what they're doing from the moment they get the raw materials all the way to what happens when you, the customer, are done with the product. Do they have take-back programs? Is it designed to be recycled? All that good stuff. And for an industry that uses so much wood, where it comes from is absolutely critical. So this metric makes companies report the exact percentage of their wood that comes from forests certified by major groups like the Forest Stewardship Council, or FSC, the Sustainable Forestry Initiative, SFI, and others. It's all about making sure that timber is being harvested in a legal and sustainable way. Okay, so we've looked at the what and the how. Let's get to the most important question of all. Why does any of this matter? What's the real-world impact of all these rules and metrics? Well, here's the bottom line, and it comes straight from the standard itself. This isn't just about feeling good or being green. Companies that do a good job managing this stuff can actually cultivate a long-term competitive advantage. And why is that? Because it leads to more people wanting to buy their products, it lowers their risk of getting in trouble with regulators, and it boosts their brand value. It's just smart business. Simple as that. And that really just leaves us with one final thought. As this kind of standardized, transparent information, this nutritional label for how companies behave, becomes more and more common, the power really shifts. It gives all of us, whether we're customers, employees, or investors, the tools we need to ask better questions and to make smarter choices. So the question is, what will you start looking for?